Hey, welcome to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I certainly appreciate it. This show is going to be on TheRudeDogShow.com and Rudy Reyes on Sports. Make sure you check that out. Throw me a follow on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Man, there's more places where you can find me than I could probably find where I'm at. Or remember the passwords to get to get into. But anyway, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. I'm live on Coachella. Today's California as well as today's Canada. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is fantastic. I get to have probably one of the most infamous guys in recent memory who not only played in the NBA, but a guy who remains connected, always very, very busy. But more importantly, he knows what's going on. He has a heartbeat of the NBA. He knows what's going on during the free agency frenzy. There's a lot of conversation, obviously, between players as well as those that are not players, along with guys here. So I appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on. It looks like we're about to, well, you guys should know this. You guys should know him right about now. Of course, it's Josiah Johnson. Hey, man, how are you? Thank you for taking your time out to join me tonight.
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. And I thought to myself, you know what? This guy's no stranger to Twitter. And despite Elon Musk purchasing it, he probably would have been better off gifting it to you because you tend to light up the Twitter line and everybody likes your stuff, the content, the timing of it. I mean, I couldn't live on my phone. I guess I do partially, but not that much. I guess I'm more of a computer-based guy, but you can find me on a mobile anywhere. It's always in my pocket. But thanks for jumping on. I certainly appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. Thank you. You know what? There's a lot of stuff going on. Of course, we can talk about the NBA free agency. I call it a frenzy. Some people don't. Some people do. And I say frenzy because predominantly it's dramatic. And the types of acquisitions between those and dramatic exits we've seen from, guys saying, well, this will be my last year in this team. Of course, I'm talking about Kyrie Irving as well as Kevin Durant. I think there's a ton of speculation, not a lot, a ton of speculation about these guys. What's going on? What happened in the locker room? What are the organizations seeing them? Where are they going? I know you've heard the chatter. What is the most recent chatter you've heard about both of these respective guys who entered the Nets collectively, but now seeming to leave separately?
Well, I wish I could tell you a bunch of inside info and all that good stuff, but I'm kind of still following along with everybody else. Obviously, Shams, Chris Haynes, Woj, and that whole crew. Everybody's kind of had conflicting reports about what's going on, but I think one thing is for certain, Kevin Durant asking Josiah, the Brooklyn Nets owner, for a trade is definitely one of the most riveting things I think to go on in a long, long time, just in terms of him being locked up for 4 more years, not feeling the situation with Kyrie. Kyrie obviously opting in for that 1 year, but not getting a long-term deal. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, I know there's been teams that have been mentioned in the KD sweepstakes, the Suns, Raptors, some other teams, some dark horse teams. And then, Kyrie to the Lakers is the big chatter on this side of town in Lakers world. But, it's going to be an interesting contentious situation because what you have right now is the Lakers, obviously, Russell Westbrook, a guy I love and respect, UCLA guy. Seems like the Lakers are, quote unquote, desperately trying to move him. You got the Nets trying to move Kyrie. So right now it's really just going to be they're staring each other down and seeing who's going to blink first. So obviously Lakers are going to come with their package and Nets are going to want more. They're going to go back and forth. There's no real, I think, rush in terms of the timetable to get the deal done on either side. The Nets obviously have Kyrie under contract for the year. So,
right.
There's even been some speculation that he may end up starting that season on the Nets roster until they can get a deal done, before the trade deadline. So I don't think either squad's necessarily in a rush to get something done. They want to do some moves that are beneficial. Obviously, we got Jeannie Buss sending out tweets, over the 4th of July weekend, kind of, getting Lakers very curious, Lakers fans very curious about what the underlying and subtweets and meanings of that thing are. But look, I think at the end of the day, we're going to watch this thing play out. It's going to be a blockbuster move, not one, but two. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves kind of set the bar with, everything they gave up to get Rudy Gobert. And if I'm the Nets and I'm looking at that, it's like, we need at least that and a little bit more because obviously KD, for my money, in my mind, is a better player than Rudy. But it's going to be interesting to see. We'll see what side blinks first. But hopefully, they can get a deal done and one that's beneficial to all parties.
Well, I hope so as well. There's been a lot of mysticism in regards to why Kyrie originally asked for a trade. This isn't uncommon ground, and I've spoken about this on the show before. He has done this to the Golden State Warriors, and now he's doing it to the Nets. And you're going into a 4-year deal, which is what he has left on his contract, trying to find a way out. And people that are really takers right now, you had mentioned Phoenix. I'm all for either Phoenix or they're in Miami for a couple of reasons. First of all, you have the benefits of both number one seeds, one in the East, one in the West, who are just missing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I mean, who doesn't want a 7-foot scorer in the corner sharpshooting you and making you just kind of shake your head and say, yep, that was a move. That's what we needed to make, because both teams really need a KD kind of guy. Unfortunately, he can't morph into two people. He's only one guy. He can only get the job done when he has supporting cast to get that done. Now, with that being said, Kyrie Irving, we've seen continuously, I'm not going to get vaccinated. I don't want to discuss the matter, and so on and so forth. It's his own decision as to whether or not he gets vaccinated or does not get vaccinated. However, that actually hurt the team in a very detrimental way that disallowed for him to play the amount of games that he should have played. Only played 25 games this past season. And of course, he's not a real media darling. Neither is Kevin Durant for all intents and purposes. But I really like the feelers that are putting out there, by other teams, by players. You know as well as I do, players talk more in the offseason than they probably do on the court. And I say that very gingerly because I know there's some guys that just can't stand one another. And then you have guys that, kind of like what LeBron did with AD and kind of having that sidebar car. Hey, man, come on over. We know your situation is not like it was there. Ultimately found his way into Los Angeles, played for the Lakers, win a bubble title or whatever you want to call it. And everybody has their own interpretation as to what that means, because when you look at the Lakers, they won the title just not even 2 years ago. And here we are back in the same muck. You have a brand new head coach, Jeannie Buss with cryptic tweets that for the life of me, I don't know who she was really taking a shot at. The only person I could think, and I could speculate all day long, and we could talk about this for an hour and a half, but this is more about certain guys that she's pinpointed to say, you know what, you're not putting in the work, you're not putting in the time. There's no way she'd be talking about LeBron James. I don't see that. The guy played over 30-plus minutes in almost every game collectively throughout the entire season, despite not having AD, despite not having all the necessary pieces surrounding him in order to help get those dubs that were really needed, especially in the Western Conference. They missed a play-in tournament. How does that happen?
It's rough. Look, I think at the end of the day, you talk about Anthony Davis missing 40 games last year. You can point all the fingers you want, but I want to say that core of LeBron, AD, and Westbrook only played 21 games together. Now, granted, they were 11-10 in those games, so that's not anything to write home about. But ultimately, they never really got the chance to develop any cohesion, become a unit. And look, at the end of the day, LeBron, 37, 38 years old, year 19, he doesn't need to be carrying a franchise anymore, carrying a team anymore. I think obviously they brought AD in to pass that torch. So AD, now the guy who's supposed to be the franchise player, at least during the regular season, mind you, missing 40 games, that's going to be tough. Everybody, LeBron obviously stepped up, 30 points per game, had a great, remarkable season, but put a lot of strain on his body that I don't think was necessary and I don't think he anticipated. So at the end of the day, it's really easy to pinpoint kind of what went wrong with that season. Like if your star player, the guy who's supposed to be leading the charge in the regular season, is missing half the season, that's tough. I mean, you show me the Warrior squad without Steph for half the season or any team around the league. It's gonna be tough pickings. But yeah, to your point, to not even make the playing game and to not really just some of those efforts looked extremely lackluster, unspirited, losing games to teams they had no business losing to. Even towards the final kind of games of the season when they're trying to make that push to at least finish 10th in the West, can't get that done. Getting embarrassed in games that are absolutely crucial to make that happen. But at the end of the day, that season is over. We've now moved on. We've got our sights set ahead. We don't really look in the past. We don't delve. Lakers, like you said, 2 years removed from winning the hardest championship in NBA history. In the bubble, whatever they want to say, Mickey Mouse ring, it was easy, it was this, it was that. Like I like to say, if it was so easy, how come your team didn't win it? If it was such an easy road and, no big deal and everybody has their opinions, well, it was easy for your teams too, right? Or no, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to give respect to who was the champion there. Everybody can talk about how easy it was when they're finishing second or below. Like ultimately, if you won the championship, you can tell me how easy or hard it was. And at the end of the day, that ring counts. Ring 17 was still hanging a banner, still got a ring and trophy for it. So I think this, LeBron, this Lakers squad, they got to look deep into themselves. And like you mentioned, Jeannie's cryptic tweet, who knows what it was aimed at, what it was directed at. I think, to me, what was more telling that she sent it at 11:11. Obviously, that holds a special place in most people's mind. That doesn't seem like it was a coincidence that it came right at that exact time. But, the squad's working behind the scenes to get it done. I don't think anybody was happy with the performance last year. And the only way you can correct that and fix that is to make improvements to the roster and put out a squad this year that is back in contention.
Yeah, no, I feel that they were missing those key games. And to your point, when it comes to losing those games that they really didn't need to lose, they really did not need to lose those games. And you said lackluster. Look, one guy cannot win a championship. One guy, and I don't care what team you're playing on, I don't care what sport you're playing in, unless it's an individual sport like tennis or golf. You cannot be the dead ringer and to hang this symbol of defeatism around your neck saying, well, I was defeated. No, this is a team sport. Everybody was defeated. I'm not the only one. And you mentioned the championship in the bubble. You're right. I don't know who could have actually won that if it wasn't for the Lakers. They got injured early on. They ended up healing up and really sticking it to a point where you had to have mass cohesion. We look at cohesion in the locker room. We talk about it all day long. It's something that we continually have lots of conversations about. What these guys like in the locker room? Do they bring, positivity? Is it negativity? Who are these guys, right? When you talk about what it's like to bring it onto the floor in a trapped environment, I say trapped because that's really what they were. They were creatures of the moment. And they were trapped in a place where they had to be safe. They had to maintain no contact unless it was, on court, practicing, things of that nature. But that's it. They were isolated. Everybody knows what COVID was like and being isolated. I can't imagine what it's like to win a championship, being isolated one by one by one. And the entire active roster, the starting roster is inside of the room wondering, well, are we going to get a chance to play? Are we going to come out? Are we going to do this? Look, everybody knows what that's like. The Lakers are where they're at right now they didn't really have any type of draft picks. They managed to get Christie. They got Scottie Pippen's son. Hopefully he doesn't carry his dad's hatred for Michael Jordan, whatever. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I mean, you get out of conversation, right? I mean, when you think about the kind of disdain Scottie Pippen had for Michael Jordan, whether he still has it or not, he needs to take a bite of the get over it, beef jerky, and say, this is, I've had enough. I'm done, right? Because we always see the meme of Michael Jordan sitting in his chair with the iPad, and he's kind of laughing, tilting his head back, and I see it all the time. Well, that's what Scottie Pippen needs to do. But the Lakers are onto something here. What are they looking for? I know the roster has yet to be said. You got guys, playing in the G League. They call up guys during the regular season to help set that roster and so on and so forth. Speculation about that cryptic tweet by Jeannie Buss and the timing of 11:11. I was at work the day Kobe Bryant passed away. Sports stopped for me. And I don't know if Jeannie Buss has realized that the sports as she knew it, our grandparents' NBA, our parents' NBA, is not the same NBA as it is today. And I'm going to use a good example of that. I was going back and forth with a guy on Twitter talking about how LeBron James is a wimp and that he oh, I know. I hear it all the time. How cries and whines about the calls that aren't made. And, look, throughout any given NBA season, and you can attest to this, you watch the games probably a lot more than anybody else that I can think of, but I really get into the poor officiating by the NBA. Now, with that being said, there are calls made in every group sports that there is. Individual sports, not so much. You fall when you play tennis or you slice it to the right. No penalties, right, other than just like a backstroke. You got to make that up somewhere down the line. But when it comes to a team sport, you leave it in the hands of referees. You're going to find yourself in a situation where the referees are going to take control over that, and you give them that inalienable power to do that. And he says, well, I'm tired of him belly aching on the floor. And he's crawling in a fetal position. I just want him to man up and play. I thought to myself, man, have you ever played a game in the NBA? I mean, actual starting component within an NBA roster on any one of the teams, any one of them? Well, no. Okay, then you have no idea what it's like to be under officiated or over officiated. We've seen that when the Golden State Warriors had taken on the Celtics. It was game 3, and it looked like they were, not getting the calls that they wanted, so they started crying out to the refs. And I see Klay Thompson doing it, and I see Stephen Curry do it, and I see, obviously the biggest offender is in Green, right? Who they all won their chips, and and it's all good and wonderful and such. But they were basically playing it to the refs. Is this more about the erroneous ways of the refs do players need to play a lot more defense, offense? What could prevent this debauchery of NBA officiating from becoming such a monster that could affect outcomes to these games?
I mean, you look officiating across the world of sports. I don't think you're happy when you get the calls you want. You're not happy when you don't get the calls you want. In terms of the whining, complaining, I think players bitching at officials has been a tale as old as time. It's been going on since in my mind, as long as I've been old enough to watch the NBA. So 80s, 90s, 2000s, always seeing guys yell at the refs, always not happy with calls. And really, it's kind of, look, they're human. They're subject to human error. I'm seeing like baseball and other sports trying to, switch to like the robotic or like the computer generated results and stuff. I like human error. That's what makes the game great. It makes it enjoyable. But ultimately, at the end of the day, no matter what level of basketball you play, there's a certain era of trying to trick refs, right? We think about Kobe back in the day when he used to play. He used to yell, "Hey," every time he shot it, trying to get the refs' attention. Now, was he getting fouled every time he shot it? No. But ultimately, if you can confuse and trick those refs enough, you're going to get some calls in your way and really bring that attention so they're looking squarely at what's going on in that particular play. I don't think LeBron whines or complains or whatever you want to say more or less than any other player in the NBA. Every player wants to, try and hunt for calls and foul bait and do all these type of things that I think fans from a viewing experience don't appreciate. But when I'm out there playing a basketball game, my job is to try to trick the refs. Obviously, I want to get the calls that are correct, but ultimately, too, if a ball goes off of me, I'm going to say it's off the other guy. That's just kind of standard, basketball protocol. Very rarely will you see a guy raise his hand and say, "Yeah, I actually fouled him." It's like, yeah, we know. We were watching the play, bro. We all saw it. So I think ultimately officiating, in my mind, isn't that bad. I think we have a lot of good jokes with it on social and get kind of some of that good banter in, but it's a part of the game. So I think complaining of the refs will never go away. That's why refs have techs and they have certain, contingencies and things in place that they can utilize to get players to shut up, to calm down, whatever it may be. But it's ultimately about giving players respect, too. So once you reach a certain level in the league, a superstar level, if you will, you're going to get better calls than guys who are the 11th, 12th man on the bench. That just is what it is. That's a part of the game. I think that's just, LeBron walks into that arena, he's going to get a lot more calls than the average human being. But for me, I think officiating, honestly, it's solid enough. Is it perfect? Of course not. It'll never be perfect. It'll never reach that world. But that's what I love about humanity. Sometimes we make mistakes, ultimately keep going. They have, obviously, things in place now, instant replay, reviews, and all that type of great stuff that they utilize to make sure they get the calls as right as possible. Overturning shots if they say it was a three and the foot was on the line or whatever it may be. So you got to work with them. Ultimately, it's just three guys on the court. I don't want to see any more officials. But, you're going to get certain things that everybody's not going to be happy with. You talk to every individual fan base, every team, every coach. Of course, they're going to think this was a foul. This wasn't. If it benefits them, they think that's the right call. If it doesn't, you made a mistake here. So, look, the league has a lot of great referees. I think, obviously, we joke because, referees kind of are viewed in a negative light no matter what sport it is. So we get those jokes off. But that's not a job I would ever. I've tried to referee some games at, the youth level and at summer camps and stuff. Not a fun position to be in, trying to manage 10 guys on the court, seeing what's going on and trying to make the right calls at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately be the guy with a license pole and a stop sign, right in the windshield. It's just not a very fun thing if somebody wants to take it to that next level. I think more importantly, when we look at a referee, there's enough human error going on from a player's standpoint in regards to bad passes, situational basketball, who's going to take the last shot, who's going to be the guy running inside on the zone, who's going to be blocking that guy. Maybe there was a double team that was missed. Some guy didn't rotate over. There's human error on both sides of the ball. The refereeing part of it, or we call the zebras, whatever you want to call them, and then the players who are erroneous as well. So as perfect as we want to paint the picture of what the NBA's supposed to be like in regards to refereeing and officiating, it's a human error game. And I completely agree with you. You look at the NFL, same thing. You look at Major League Soccer, same thing. Baseball, same thing. You're not going to get perfection in any game. And the moment it becomes perfect, someone's going to throw a red flag and say, well, why wasn't that a strike? The complaints are going to go away anytime soon.
If it's perfect, it's not perfect enough. You know what I mean? Like there's going to always be, this isn't perfect enough. This isn't as perfect as I thought it was going to be. Like,
right. Yeah, that's right. They're going to shake their head and say, wow, I miss those days when things were called in error, right? That's kind of what it is. I was looking at the numbers in regards to all the teams who have over $100,000. Of course, I don't know that any team's going to supermax anybody out, even though they may have the money to do it. Why? Because rosters aren't set. We don't know if these guys are going to stick or not stick or stay around or whatever the case might be. The Lakers explicitly have over 100,000 in fluid money, 100,000, 100 million to move that around. They obviously one reserve, almost 12 mil, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with holding some back, right? Because you never know who's going to need a little extra signing bonus, things of that nature. And then in regards to money that they always pay forward, they're about 86, million, which again, this is all money hasn't been set in rosters and whatnot, but there's a lot of teams who are really feeling the pinch right now. When I say pinch, I mean penny pinch. The Rockets are 70 million, which isn't, it's a lot to you and I, obviously, but when it comes to teams and their impact of who they can acquire, who they can get, who's going to stay on the roster, those are pennies. You're pulling a Scrooge McDuck. And a lot of these teams are doing the very same thing, and they're feeling the pinch. Charlotte Hornets, same thing. But there's a reason why. Is it because they're small markets? Do they not get better TV deals? What attributes to these numbers outside of the players that they've already, obviously set up guaranteed monies to sign heading into shaping the roster, what that looks like in 2022?
Well, look, man, this is a business. When you talk about teams, a lot of teams are generating revenue based on ticket sales, things like that. You look at the Lakers, the Warriors. The Warriors can be, nearly $200 million in luxury tax payments because they have the bread to do it. They're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars off ticket sales. Those finals games alone, bringing in tons and tons of revenue, and it makes it worth their while and worth their ownership. It's a problem. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a business. So you can make a lot of money, as Donald Sterling showed us back in the old days when he was running the Clippers. You can make a lot of money putting out an inferior product, and it doesn't need to be about winning championships. Ultimately, whether you're number 1 or number 30 in the league, you can make money in a small market doing things that way. But I salute and obviously give kudos to the teams and the organizations that do that. Obviously, the Warriors, best team the money could buy, high salary cap in NBA history, and they got the result they were looking for. You look at baseball, same thing with the Yankees, always spending big bread, to put out teams that are competitive. The Dodgers, I'm an LA guy, same situation. You got to play in these sports. So ultimately, you got that salary cap that's designed for a reason, but they got the luxury tax to help make that thing stretch. So, it's a good move, safe bet. I feel like some small market owners have a ton of money and they're not just spending it wisely and not doing the correct things. But others, they see it. And we saw this last year with Alex Caruso and Jeannie Buss not willing to, spend a couple million extra dollars because of that luxury tax implication. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I look at that, and as an owner, if I'm one of the Warriors owners, then it's like, man, we got our salary, then we're going to pay another, nearly $200 million in luxury taxes on top of that. That'd be something, I'd have to really, really think about. You're basically not throwing money down the drain because ultimately you're going to get it back if you put out a great product. But we've also seen teams go high into that luxury tax and not do that. So it's definitely a tough decision to make. But ultimately, I think these owners are businessmen, first and foremost, businessmen and women. They're savvy, and they know that, the team doesn't necessarily need to win a championship or even compete for a championship in order for them to make money off the franchise. So that's kind of a hindrance. I wish, kind of like professional soccer and other sports, if the NBA put like some form of relegation in place, like, if you continue to be one of the bottom teams in the league, you're getting taxed, you're losing draft picks, something like that, I think that would spark and encourage teams a lot more to be more competitive. Like, in soccer, you finish in that bottom 2, and now you got to go down to the B League. That's not any, I've seen fans rush fields and try to fight players and things all over the world over situations like that. I think that's more encouraging. Where in the NBA, you do the same thing, and you have a really, really, really great shot at getting the number 1 talent coming into the league the following year. So it almost benefits you to tank. You see a lot of teams now, you either got great teams, not a lot of teams in the middle. They make a conscious effort and choice to get rid of a lot of their assets so they can frolic at that bottom and have the opportunity to get some of those top draft picks. Obviously, they're less of a financial commitment than you're talking about, like all-star Supermax type guys. Yeah. So it's a good move. It's just the way this thing rolls and shakes. So ultimately, I'm not no owner, no business person or anything like that. But the bottom line is always the bottom line, right? They're trying to make that bread. So whether it's fielding a competitive team or not, if you can make a lot of money putting a loser out there, what's really the encouragement to try and win? You may pretend like you are. You may, get really fiery and spirited in the media and do all those things to act like you want to do that. But at the end of the day, if I know I can get access to this premium talent by underperforming, then let's get it.
Right. And everything looks great on paper, everything. The only thing that looks great on paper right now from a business owner perspective is money. Real, honest to God money. We're not talking funny money, monopoly money, Turkish money, a peso. It's not like that at all. The only money that's going to count and look good on paper are dollar bills, because without bills, it makes no sense, right? So when you're looking at stretching that dollar out, pay the luxury tax if you need to, if you believe that's going to get you somewhere. When you look at the Nets, they have, the guy's a filthy rich billionaire who owns the Brooklyn Nets. Not a lot of teams have the luxury of having a backing like that. So to offer 4 years to someone like Kevin Durant, that's like, yeah, all right, go ahead, call it 4 years, $126 million, whatever. Just stick around, just stay here. We're rebuilding, right? It's going to take a different type of look, a different type of turn. The minute Kevin Durant says, you know what, I'm out. And when I say I'm out, I'm not just telling you I'm out. I'm physically out of here. And I think that's going to look bad on the Nets organization. They can't find a way to keep him. And then secondly, you look at other teams you'd mentioned. Some have all that money and they want to stretch it, or they contribute to poor schemes, maybe a wash and rinse, coach where you recycle these guys. NFL has done it. NBA does it. How many teams can one guy coach and end up with the same exact result? Why? Because it's the same guy coaching. It's just a different team. Yeah. It's just taking a different look, a different face, a different view. How is that supposed to make me believe as a fan? If I'm a season ticket holder, how is that the equivalent to making me want to buy that and the paraphernalia that goes along with that for an entire season? If what you're going to do is give me a crap project and a crap result on the hardwood, it doesn't make any sense. Why? Well, you'd have to convince me. You'd have to sell me on it. I'm in the Shark Tank. Convince me. I'm the guy with the billions. Tell me, sell me on it. If you can't sell me, then I'm not buying. And that's the bottom line to it. I'm an LA guy too. Born and raised Southern California. I was born in LA County and moved out to San Bernardino at a very young age. So when it comes to, watching Dodger baseball, the Angels, my dad used to cut Reggie Jackson's hair back in the day when he played for the Angels. Okay. I'm very embedded into what's going on in LA. And of course, we know the All-Star game is going to happen at the Ravine. I had the pleasure of actually going to the Ravine a couple of times to watch the Pirates play. I actually like the Pirates, and I can't believe they're actually putting the can on the Yankees right now. But that's a whole nother story for another time. When you look at the Lakers roster and what's currently, I don't want to say an active roster because it's always moving. It's kind of the ebbs and flow of what a roster could look like, what it should look like, what it may look like. I mean, you have Troy Brown, Max Christie, AD Anthony Davis, Wenyen Gabriel. I'm surprised Talen Horton-Tucker's not off the chopping block yet. He should be, I believe, to get some more acquisitions, kind of wrap that in a bundle deal. I don't know if they like him too much, if contracts even mean anything anymore nowadays. That's another story again for another time. LeBron James, obviously, Stanley Johnson, Damian Jones, Kendrick Nunn, Scottie Pippen Jr., go figure, Jr., of course, hopefully they don't call him Junior on the broadcast because that would be kind of disrespectful. Austin Reeves, Cole Swider, and Juan Toscano Anderson. That's an interesting dash. And then, of course, Russell Westbrook. Again, this is not a final roster. This is a working roster. Do you see, last but not least, do you see the Lakers moving on from Russell Westbrook and maybe sending him in a package with somebody else on the current roster? To not, and I'm leaving Kyrie out of this because Kyrie has still 1 year left, and they can basically get him next year for next to nothing, versus what they can get back in return if they bundle out Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we've got LeBron on a, really, father time is undefeated. He's going into year 20 now. He's going to be a free agent after this year, I believe. So there's a lot of different situations, contingencies, things they got to consider and think about. I'm glad that I'm not in that position. I just get to be a fan that gets to watch at home and see what happens. Darvin Ham, I think, coming into this situation, there's a lot of things he needs to fix and improve. I love that, one of the first things he did was call Westbrook and have a talk with him about sacrificing more from the team and being more locked in defensively and a bunch of different things. So I'm not necessarily, I know a lot of Lakers fans want to see Westbrook gone. Like I said, I love Russ. I'm a UCLA guy. I want to see them kind of figure that situation out. I don't know what the right answer solution is. Obviously, what they did this year isn't working. I can see situations where he leans heavily kind of more in that second unit and gets to run the show there, and you lean more on LeBron AD on that first squad. I'm not saying bring Russ off the bench, but I'm just saying, those are certain things you can do. You kind of got to run two different offenses with, Russ on the court versus LeBron and AD and that crew. So, but ultimately, I'm excited to see what goes on. I think, for me, this NBA season is always amazing and fantastic, but free agency, the summertime, this is the time that's, everybody's kind of, on the edge of their seat, waiting to see what's going on, watching different moves go on around the league. Obviously, we're not the only team or fan base dealing with it. You obviously got Nets fans trying to figure out what's going on that side. Suns fans trying to see if they get KD. Same thing with Heat and Raptors fans. Everybody has some cautious optimism right now that things will improve and get better, and that's kind of the best part about heading into the summer. You watching Summer League teams are fool's gold. You see the Lakers Summer League team is absolutely dominating. Obviously not what was the case this past season. So I enjoy these times, but ultimately at the end of the day, I know, people are hard to work behind the scenes. We as fans obviously have a lot of opinions, a lot of judgment. Want to infuse ourselves into these discussions and conversations and debates, and that's awesome. But ultimately, every one of us would piss down our leg if we had to be in the same situation that a lot of these GMs and owners and franchises are in, trying to land certain players and see what's the right move. I'm a fan of THT as well. He's only 21 years old. I think if THT would have came out in the draft this year, you're looking at a guy who's a top 5, top 10 pick. So, you got to kind of hold him to that bar as well. He's had a couple of years NBA experience, shown some signs of flashes, obviously got that extension. The Lakers believed him enough to give him that bread, to make him a tradable piece or whatever people want to say about it. But the guy can hoop. So I think ultimately it's about him finding his groove, getting it together, and these guys going out and being as injury-free as possible. Even look at Kendrick Nunn, who didn't play a game last year. It's kind of a running joke in Lakers Nation, when's Kendrick Nunn going to play, all bag finesse team, things like that. But, hopefully he's healthy now. And, if he's on the roster, like, they can get some things done. I'm a big Kendrick Nunn fan, love what he did with the Heat against the Lakers in the bubble. Was excited and looking forward to seeing him kind of, continue that in purple and gold. But the pickups, too, like you mentioned, Juan Toscano Anderson, I know a guy who, his role kind of diminished a little bit with the Warriors as the season went on. Brings a lot of heart, a lot of toughness, comes from a championship pedigree, has a ring now too. And that's what you really want, guys with championship experience, guys that are going to help a coach like Darvin Ham behind the scenes get this Lakers squad ready to go for the season. Guys that can be leaders in the locker room, no matter if they're the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th man, because they're used to being in those situations. It's a lot different than when they're the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th man, and they're coming from another team where, mediocrity was kind of, what they lived by, where you're coming from a championship program. And Lonnie Walker, I think another great pickup too. Troy Brown, I'm a fan of. Love to see what he's going to be able to do in purple and gold. And like you mentioned, the guys that they already got coming back, to Austin Reeves, Stanley Johnson of the world, guys that are just, Stanley getting out this second opportunity, this rebirth, to play the game he loves. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, me too. It's really going to be a very interesting off season. I'd love to watch the G League games. I think that right there will help set the tune to decipher whether or not this guy's good enough to be on the roster. Does he get promoted based on work ethic, based on speed, ball handling? There's so many types of analytics involved, and where these guys could actually place or be placed, and or heck, be traded for that matter for something later on, because the Lakers did not have a pick this season. Hosea, thank you so much, man. I appreciate having you on. It was fantastic. I really thank you for your time. Tell everybody where they can find you, what you're up to, and how they can connect with you.
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram at KingJosiah54, and doing a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, man. Always working, always grinding. Do a show with the Wave Sports Entertainment called Out of Pocket. Doing some work with Showtime Basketball. Doing the No Chill podcast with Gilbert Arenas on Fubo. So trying to stay busy, trying to keep these kids fed, and keep my family happy.
There it is, man. That's really what it's about. Keep everybody happy, because if it's a happy wife, happy life, happy children, and everything goes well. I wish you the best. Thank you so much. Love to have you on again when you're available.
Thank you so much, too. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right, you too.
That was fantastic. Love having him on. I've been trying to get him on for quite some time now. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. Today's California. Today's Canada. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. This episode will be on TheRudeDogShow.com. Rudy Reyes on sports. Make sure you check that out. I'm going to put a podcast together with a lovely intro. I thought I had hooked that up relatively well the last time. It's on Apple Podcasts. You can go to TheRudeDogShow.com and listen to all podcasts. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Everybody have a wonderful evening.